Welcome to the universe in a seashell, the podcast dedicated to science, life, and girl power. I'm Kara Bartek and I'm your host. I'm a PhD, an author, and I want to make this world a more equal and opportune place, one girl at a time. And welcome to the universe in a seashell. I'm Kara Bartek and I'm your host. And I am joined today by the true star of Universe in a Seashell, which is Cece, my co-host.
Hi guys.
Okay, so for the regular fans of Serafina Love Science, you probably know that Cece's my daughter, but I realized that I've never specifically mentioned it on the podcast. Cece is, first and foremost, my daughter, but she is also one of my main inspirations to make science happen for girls. Cece was actually born one day before my 30th birthday. And turns out she was one of the best gifts that I ever received in my whole entire life. And she inspires me every day to get girls excited about science, because science is a wonderful thing. It helps us discover our world. It helps us make our world a better place. And in the future, if girls like you, Cece, know about science, they're confident in their science skills, and they want to do things to make this world a better place, guess what's going to happen? You could do anything. Girls like you're going to be the folks that cure cancer. Girls like you are going to be the people who clean up our oceans. Girls like you are going to be the people that build a rocket ship that makes it to Mars. That's why science matters. And that's why I do this every day. So thank you, Cece, for being a really awesome inspiration, even though you have a gross room that's always messy.
You're welcome.
So before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items that I want to cover. First and foremost, you can find the podcast on Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or anywhere else that you get your podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, because guess what? Your opinion matters. Not only is it great feedback for the podcast, but it also helps raise the visibility of the universe in a seashell. Because the universe in a seashell is all about making this world a more equal and opportune place, one girl at a time. And I can't do it alone. Cece and I can't do it alone, can we?
No, we can't.
We need your help. So tell your friends, let them know what you're listening to. Post a link, send a link, whatever you got to do. But most importantly, never, ever, ever stop talking about science. Now, you can also get in touch with me if you, for example, have a suggestion for the show. Maybe you have a question, or there's a guest you'd like to hear from, or maybe you just want to say hi. Send me an email at universeinaseashell@gmail.com. Again, that's universeinaseashell@gmail.com. And I actually have a couple questions this week that I want to quickly cover. And these were actually direct questions. They didn't come through email, but I thought that they were really good. So the first question I got was from a kid that we were hanging out with earlier in the week who asked, hey, where did you get the name Universe in a Seashell from? Okay, so the Universe in a Seashell is basically a nod to one of my most favorite books of all time, which is The Universe in a Nutshell by a scientist named Stephen Hawking. Okay, the universe in a nutshell is all about the most complex, amazing, fascinating, really cool theories, concepts, all of that kind of stuff in cosmology. So Stephen Hawking, who actually just recently passed away, is a pretty famous scientist who is best known for his work in black holes. Now, what he did beyond amazing research in black holes, so there's actually a type of radiation called Hawking radiation that has to do with the origins of the universe, and that's something we can get into later. That's named after him. So he did some actual academic work, but he would also write these popular science books. And when I say popular science, I mean that he would take these really big concepts that would typically be seen as too complicated for the average person to understand, and he would make it very easy to digest and very easy to comprehend. And The Universe in a Nutshell is one of those books that I could pick up and read almost any day of the week. And I remember the first time I read it. In fact, your dad, Cece, gave it to me for one of my birthdays many, many moons ago. And it was probably one of the best gifts I ever got. And so the idea is that a nutshell is a teeny tiny little thing, right? Well, what Stephen Hawking was doing was he was fitting all these big concepts into a teeny tiny little nutshell. And he was making it easy for you and me to understand through these books. And that's my intent with this podcast, is I want to take these big scientific concepts and make it interesting and fun and put it in a seashell. Now, when you see me doing media for the show, you probably notice that I'm using a nautilus seashell, right? Okay, so the nautilus represents something called the Fibonacci sequence. Now, I challenge anybody that's listening to the podcast to go out and look up the Fibonacci sequence and drop me a line and say, and tell me exactly why you think that I picked the seashell, in particular the nautilus seashell, for this podcast. Are you going to look it up, Cece? Are you going to look up the Fibonacci sequence?
I'll have to look it up on your phone.
Okay. I think we can arrange that.
Okay.
Now, I also got a question from an adult who asked, are you afraid that the concepts that you're presenting are going to be too complicated for kids? What do you think about that, Cece? Do you think the concepts that we're presenting are going to be too complicated for kids? Okay, here's my theory. I think that when given a chance to succeed, people succeed. I think that when you set a bar, you set a goal, or most importantly, you set an example, kids, girls, boys, whomever you are, generally achieve it, because you can do most anything that you set your mind to. I believe that. And while I am taking complicated scientific topics and breaking it into an easier to digest and most importantly fun way of exploring the topics, I believe that no topic is too complicated for kids to understand. From black holes to the Fibonacci sequence to how plastics degrade in nature, I think you can understand it. And there are plenty of examples of children who are, they're young, but they're inventing things. They're making this world a better place in many, many different ways. So, yeah, that's what I think. What do you think, Cece?
I think that if they put their mind to it, they can.
I agree. Now, I also want to give a couple of shout outs very quickly to some of our friends. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to Lucy S. and Claire S. in Corpus Christi. We miss you a lot, guys. You want to say hi, Cece?
Hi.
Well, that didn't sound too enthusiastic.
Hi.
That was very enthusiastic. I also want to give a shout out to Ava T., who is in Schulenburg, Texas, and she is our resident slime queen. She knows anything and everything about slime. What's up, Ava? Cece, can you say what's up?
Hi, Ava.
I think Cece thinks I'm kind of a dork, don't you?
You can.
I can be a dork. Okay, I also want to give a shout out to Dylan B, who is one of our buddies from Corpus Christi, Texas. He loves robots. What's up, Dylan? I hope that you're doing well. Okay. Now we're recording this podcast on June the 15th, but it's gonna be uploaded next week, so much later, and Father's Day will have already passed, because Father's Day's tomorrow, right?
Yes.
What did you get your dad? It's okay, he's not listening.
Okay, I got him a card.
And it's a really cute card. What is on the card?
It's like a flip-up card with two bears on their bicycles.
Oh, it's really adorable. We found it at Walmart, and I thought it was pretty neat. It's not like any card that I've ever seen before, but anyway. So I wanted to do a belated happy Father's Day to any dads who may be out there listening. And the way that I wanted to do it is I have this really cool poem that I found online. Cece, do you want me to read it?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's super cute. I like poems. Do you like poems?
Yes.
Okay. I like poems too. I was trying to find one of the more famous poets who did, maybe like a Father's Day type of a poem. Like I was looking at, there's a really famous poet named E. E. Cummings, William Wordsworth, and there's a lot of folks out there. But anyway, this poem is actually from a poet that I had never heard of before, but he's great. His name is Nicholas Gordon, and it's very short, but it's really sweet. So here goes nothing. Actually, Cece, would you want to read it?
Sure.
Okay, here you go.
Daddy, I love you for all that you do. I'll kiss you and hug you 'cause you love me too. You feed me and need me to teach you to play. So smile 'cause I love you on this Father's Day.
Wow. That was really sweet. What do you think of that?
It was good.
Yeah, it's really special. So anyway, so happy Father's Day, happy belated Father's Day to the folks out there listening. Now, I've got an issue with you, Cece.
What?
Okay, you were crazy quiet on the last podcast.
Sorry, it was early in the morning.
Okay, but the funny thing about this is that I am constantly telling Cece to be quiet because generally she's screaming. Right?
Yes, because Penny's always annoying me.
Penny's always annoying you? Here, okay, so here's what I'm going to tell her. So we've put the microphone up towards her face, and I'm asking her to use her cheerleader voice, which I don't know if she's doing that or not. Do a testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3. So anyway, so yes, Cece, she was... Her volume was perfect on the first podcast. The second one, she was quieter, and I didn't even realize it. Actually, Dad was listening to the podcast in the truck, and he said, "I can hardly hear Cece." And I said, "Oh no!" So this time, I want to make sure that everybody can hear you because you've got some really funny and cool things to say, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. But anyway, so let me tell you how loud Cece is. Because she likes to call me out in her really loud voice. Okay, one of her famous things that she'll do is she'll run up to me and she'll say, "Oh my God, Mom, why are you wearing that?" No comment? Because I'm a big fan of Alien and Bigfoot t-shirts, and she always is embarrassed when I wear that kind of stuff, aren't you?
Kind of.
Okay. One time she ran up to me, and we were either like at Walmart or at H-E-B, which H-E-B is a grocery store here in Texas, and she yelled very loud, "Oh my God, Mom, did you fart?" Okay, so that was super embarrassing. But one of the things that she always yells out, which by the way is all about this topic that we've got going on, she'll say, "Oh my God, Mom, your breath stinks so bad."
It does. You can't deny that.
Okay, no, I can't deny it. You can't call me out on that in public. How rude.
Now you're getting on to me for my talking?
Okay, so anyway, so that's what we're going to be talking about today is the science of bad breath. So we're going to try to figure out what are the causes of bad breath and what can you do to make sure that your breath is nice and fresh. Okay, Cece. So let's give it, okay, when you smell Mom's breath, what do you do?
I go to the toilet.
Why do you go to the toilet?
In case I need to throw up.
Oh my gosh. Is it that bad? It's that horrible?
Yes!
Okay, so bad breath is totally gross. It's totally disgusting. But I did some research, and guess what? There are some scientific reasons why people's breath stinks. Okay? Now, the number one reason, we're going to start first thing in the morning. Have you ever noticed that people's breath really stinks in the morning?
Yes.
Does your breath ever stink in the morning?
Yes.
What about Penny or Dad?
Dad's breath stinks a lot in the morning.
Yeah, so this is actually a condition. Now, let me back up. There is a scientific medical term for bad breath.
What?
Halitosis.
Ew.
Okay, it even sounds bad, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so
halitosis.
It just has the word toe in it too, which kind of makes me think of like big crusty toes.
Yes, like Daddy's.
Yeah, Daddy kind of has like a big yellow toenail. That's always
really disgusting.
Yes. That's a different scientific reason. But anyway, so halitosis is this medical term for bad breath. Okay. Now, so I'm going to be using this term as we talk about these different scientific reasons why your breath can stink. Okay. Morning breath. Okay, so this is one time that people generally experience halitosis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, do you have any idea why people's breath would stink in the morning?
We don't eat at night except for my grandpa.
Grandpa's a big fan of midnight snacking, isn't he?
Yes, and whenever he does, he doesn't brush his teeth after he snacks, so...
Yeah, that's no good, is it?
No.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, so here's what scientists say. While you're sleeping, there are bacteria in your mouth that are producing. Okay, now you know that our bodies are covered in bacteria. There's bacteria all over our skin, in our stomachs, and we actually are probably more bacteria than we are human. Can you believe that?
I cannot believe that.
Yeah, this is actually a huge topic in science right now. They call it flora. Okay, so flora kind of means like, you know, you've heard flora and fauna. So flora is supposed to be like vegetation, trees, plants, grass, all that kind of stuff. And fauna is animals. So we have a flora that lives on us, which is all of this bacteria. Well, in our mouths, we have a bunch of bugs that they like to take advantage of the fact that you produce a lot of saliva when you're asleep. And they're in there and they're reproducing, they're having a party, they're doing all kinds of stuff that the bacteria does, namely making waste, okay? And that's what causes that odor.
Ew.
Right? How gross is that?
Poop in your mouth?
Well, I don't know if it's technically considered pooping since they don't have intestines, but they're definitely producing waste. So they're metabolizing our saliva, okay? And the byproduct is what makes your breath stink so bad in the morning.
Ugh.
All right.
There must be thousands of them to make our breath stink.
Okay, but I have a feeling there's a lot more than thousands. But that's just me, especially in your mouth, Cece. You've got rank morning breath too. It's not just me. It's not just me.
Dad has pretty bad breath.
In the mornings?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, but there's a very simple solution to curing morning breath. What is that?
Brush your teeth.
Absolutely. That's why you got to brush your teeth in the morning. Okay. Now, there's another way that bad breath is caused, and this is through diet. Okay, now Dad has a condition that I like to call garlic face.
He likes to eat garlic.
Well, so one of his favorite foods is these olives that are stuffed with garlic, and it's like an entire clove of garlic that's in there. And so he'll eat like half the jar, and I'm kind of going, what is that? What is that smell? And I realize it's Dad's face. See,
an entire clove in one olive?
Yeah, that's a lot of garlic. So Cece's dad, my husband, he has a beard.
And sometimes food gets caught in it.
Yes, or odors can get trapped in it, but at the same time, his mouth is retaining these odors. So here's some offending foods: garlic, onions, cheese. Okay, like feta cheese. That's another type of olive that died. Blue cheese. It's stinky. Okay, because cheese can be totally stinky. Parmesan's stinky.
It stinks, but it's good.
Okay, what other kind of foods are stinky?
I'm thinking.
Well, okay, so I love Taco Bell. Taco Bell is, I don't even want to get started on this topic, but Taco Bell is probably the best restaurant ever in the history of all restaurants. I love their food so much, but it can be very stinky, right?
Yes, because sometimes their burritos stink.
Their burritos stink.
Because they have onions in them.
Yeah, they've got onions and that salsa, all of that kind of stuff. So, anyway, garlic, onions, cheeses, all of these things can really make your breath stink. Now, not only is it because you've chewed up the food and it kind of is lingering in your mouth and in your teeth, but it can also be because it goes down your throat and hits your stomach, and the food is down there digesting. So, you know what a sausage burp is, right?
Yes.
How gross are sausage burps?
They're really disgusting.
You know who's the worst at sausage burping?
Who?
Pawpaw. That's Cece's grandpa. He loves, because sausage is one of his favorite foods, but it gives him some gas, and when he burps, you can smell that stinky sausage smell, right?
Ew.
Oh, it's so disgusting. So disgusting. So that's one way. Now here's where part of this social part of bad breath comes in. Now, we're Americans. And Americans have a very different way of thinking about smells and body odors. But guess what? We're different than a lot of countries. There are a lot of countries that think that body odor, it's just natural and normal. We just have a very different standard here. We have a ton of perfumes, a ton of deodorants, soaps, all of that kind of good stuff. So we have a very different standard. So a lot of this could be cultural, okay? So there's cultural standards, but there's also different smells to certain types of ethnic foods, like Indian food, which again, okay, so Taco Bell's number one for me. Number two, like my favorite restaurant in the whole world, because I love Taco Bell food, but my number two favorite food would be Indian food. And Indian food can kind of get stinky sometimes, right, Cece?
It can.
Even though it tastes so good, it's super spicy. It uses a lot of different, like garlics, onions, all of that kind of stuff, but also some very exotic spices like cloves and cinnamon and cumin, coriander, and those have very strong odors. So after you eat Indian food, you can kind of be stinky, right?
It can get like, whew.
Yes. So, those are some different ways. Now, these are now just eating and having the smell of the food linger. That's a pretty easy solution, right? How do you solve that? What could you do after you eat a stinky meal to make sure that you don't have halitosis?
Chew gum, take breath mints, or if it's your dinner, brush your teeth.
Yes. Oh, and then also, remember at our favorite Indian restaurant there in College Station, what they have up at the counter? They've got those little seeds, those like anise seeds. Yes.
And they kind of smell like pepperminty. And they have like pink things in there too. I always take those because they smell good too.
Yes, and it makes your breath smell amazing. It's kind of like, see, I would disagree. I think it has more of a licorice flavor. Those little, because it's anise, right? It's anise seeds, isn't it?
I don't know what kind of seeds they are, but they smell good.
Yes, and it always makes your breath smell super fresh. So, anyway, now there's also a certain type of diet that can make your breath stink. Okay, and it's called the keto diet. Now, this is probably something that you're not familiar with, Cece, because dieting is that's not your concern. A lot of people listening, this is probably not their concern. But anyway, the keto diet is basically a low carb diet. And so when I say low carb, I mean that people will cut out breads, pastas, tortillas, potatoes, anything that has the carbohydrate nutrient in it. And because they're trying to achieve some sort of physical result. Either they're trying to lose weight or maybe they're training for an athletic event, whatever that it might be. But the point is that when you deprive your body of carbohydrates, your fat will burn in a certain way it's called ketosis, okay? And see, because you need glucose in your blood to have energy, right? So like, have you ever noticed after you have like a lot of sugar, you have a ton of energy? Or if you have
sugar cookie,
yeah. I get a lot of energy from pasta. Like if I have to go on a long race or I'm doing a long run, when I eat a bowl of pasta, I feel like my energy level goes up because I'm consuming that carbohydrate, which eventually breaks down into a glucose, which is important for our metabolism. So anyway, so when you don't have enough of that, your body goes into something that's called ketosis, and it's burning up basically your stored fats, and it produces this odor. Okay, now here's the thing. So this means your breath will have this odor. Do you know what it smells like?
Oh.
Wait, you got to make sure you're speaking up.
Dad's
What is
garlic bread?
No, it's even worse. It smells like cat pee.
Ew.
Yes, it has a very strong odor. So, again, beware. Certain types of diets can make you smell like cat pee.
Just warning, don't take that diet so your breath does not smell like cat pee.
Okay, here's another way that you could have stinky breath. Now, this one is going to sound kind of crazy. So, mouth breathing. So, you know what mouth breathing is, right?
Oh, yeah, when you snore.
Yeah, well, if you snore, you're going, give us some mouth breathing, Cece.
I know a few people who snore.
Yes.
My grandma, my grandpa, and my dad. Oh, and my sister.
Penny snores?
On Christmas, I couldn't go to sleep because I was so excited. I stayed up and I overheard Penny going.
No way, Jose.
I'm not joking. She snores,
my
and
goodness.
it was loud.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so snoring is an example of mouth breathing. So people generally mouth breathe if there's like a if there's an obstruction in your nose, right?
Like if you have sinuses or something, like
Yeah.
allergies.
Allergies, like you could have like a lot of mucus and snot, in your nose, or there's another thing called a deviated septum. And so septum is basically this little structure that exists in your nose. It's kind of a bony little thing, but take a deep breath through your nose. And you notice how easily the air passes through there, and it's two tunnels, right? Now, if you have a deviated septum, that little structure in there is actually obstructing the air. So it'd be kind of like if you were to cover one of your nostrils and then try to. So yeah, it's hard. Yeah, so that's kind of what happens.
If you do this, and you breathe through your nose, it's easier.
Yeah.
And I think that's how they make snoring.
Yeah, because I know for Dad, when he snores, I can definitely tell when his allergies are acting up, right?
I've tried snore strips and stuff. It doesn't work for him.
That we're gonna have to do the science of snoring one of these days.
Yes.
Well, we'll record Dad.
No, we'll record Dad secretly in his sleep snoring.
Do you think he'd get really, really mad?
We can't send the podcast to him. He'll get really angry at us.
Okay, that was super funny, but you gotta make sure that you talk loud.
Okay.
Say it again. He'll do what?
He'll get really angry at us.
He'll get super angry at us. Do his fake angry face. Ha! That's actually more like our dog. We have an angry dog too. But anyway, we're getting off the topic. Okay, so mouth breathing. Mouth breathing can cause stinky breath by a very particular mechanism, which is your saliva or the spit in your mouth begins to evaporate. Okay? So we already talked about how food can make your breath stink because it's staying in there. There's food particles, there's residue, and it puts off an odor. Well, if you don't have any saliva, do you think you can wash away those food particles?
No.
Yeah, that's totally right. You can't. So they think that having that reduced, scientists believe that having the reduced saliva flow can make the breath stink. Now, mouth breathing happens, we've already covered in snoring, but it can also happen in exercise. So have you ever run really far, had a really long soccer game, and you kind of are out there panting like a dog? That's right, yeah.
I used to play soccer for 4-something years.
Yes, yeah. You had the legs of thunder, didn't you?
Oh.
Okay, here's another way that your breath can stink. Now, this one's going to surprise you. Not eating.
Are you serious?
Okay, listen to this. Skipping meals is a surefire way to have bad breath. It's because when you don't eat, you do not produce as much saliva. It's that simple. You're looking at me very skeptical. I'm seeing a theme in this. Spit has a lot to do with whether or not you have fresh breath or stinky breath, and I think you have to have a lot of it. So anyway,
We've been talking a lot about saliva.
Yeah, I know. And see, and here's the thing. I think that this is the key to fresh breath, but we need to continue to go on. But anyway, so if you're not eating, you're not producing saliva, and you're not moving all of those particles and things in your mouth, and guess what? That's important. Okay. This one's pretty obvious. Smoking. Smoking causes really stinky breath. That's clear. Cigarettes stink anyways. Certain types of medications can also cause stinky breath.
Papa takes a lot of medications.
Well, does he have fresh breath all the time?
No.
Okay. So certain types of medications, antihistamines, diuretics, muscle relaxers, these can cause stinky breath. Now, antihistamines and diuretics. Okay, an antihistamine is like Benadryl. Okay? And it can basically give you a cotton mouth. Okay? So that means, so what is it doing if it's giving you, and diuretics are the same way. Diuretics is a type of medication that is meant to expel water from your body. So if you have like swelling, it's very common if you have high blood pressure because you're trying to control the fluid in your body. And these medications can give you cotton mouth. And what happens if you have cotton mouth?
What is cotton mouth? Can you just tell me?
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good question. So cotton mouth is exactly what it sounds like. Like, like a big ball of cotton would be in your mouth. That's the kind of feeling that you get.
Like it's really soft in your mouth?
No, it's really dry. So imagine putting a cotton ball into your mouth. How it would affect the moisture in there.
It would suck up all that moisture.
Exactly.
Your mouth would feel really dry.
Exactly. So that's cotton mouth. So anyway, so these medications, they basically reduce saliva flow and cause stinky breath. Here's another one, postnasal drip. Do you know what that is?
Postnatal drip or whatever.
Postnasal drip. Boom. Postnasal drip. Boom. Okay, postnasal drip is, have you ever had that tickle in your throat when you're having allergies or a cold? Okay. So snot comes out of your nose. Okay, everything in your head is connected.
Yes.
Let's start off with that. Eyes, nose, ears, they're all connected by these passageways, sinuses, canals, all this kind of stuff. Postnasal drip is when, the snot comes out of your nose, drippy, 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 like a faucet, this way. And when I say this way, nobody can see me. I'm pointing outwards. Boop, 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 boop. It can also go the reverse way. Did you know that?
Are you serious?
Yeah. So if you're like laying on your back, maybe if you're having a lot of mucus production, you can get that, your mucus could actually drip into your throat.
And sometimes that causes mouth snot.
Oh yeah, that's super gross. Well, anyway.
Really disgusting.
Well, when that stuff sits in there, guess what happens?
What?
It gives you stinky breath. Halitosis.
Ew. Snot breath?
Yeah. And I actually think that this is probably one of the reasons when I get stinky breath, I think it's because my allergies are acting up and I'm getting a lot of that stuff that's kind of sitting in the back of my throat.
That's why my breath always stinks when I'm sick.
Exactly.
Because I always lay on my back.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing. So having a cold, having a sinus infection, or just your allergies acting up, which a lot of people call that hay fever. When your allergies kind of act up, you want to say something, Cece? Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Hay fever?
Yeah. So hay fever is kind of like a common term for like a spring allergy. So if you've ever noticed, and they're actually starting to cut and bale hay right where we live. So if you've ever noticed in those hay fields, you'll see a lot of kind of dust rising, and that's the kind of stuff that makes you sneeze. Achoo! 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 And so they call it hay fever. What? Exactly. So anyway, so postnasal drip, that's another cause of halitosis. Okay, you've got to embellish the word halitosis for me. When I say stinky breath, you got to say like, halitosis.
Halitosis.
Okay, you got to say it in a really scary, stinky way.
You should get Dad to say that way, because I can't.
Okay.
My voice is not that hollow.
Okay, if you point to me, then I'll do it. When I say stinky breath, point to me and say, go for it, Mom. And I'll say, halitosis. Okay. All right, a couple more reasons why you can have stinky breath. And again, this is according to scientists. We've got people that are studying this, generally medical doctors, and other folks that are trying to make sure that this is a world filled with very fresh and minty breath. Dental health. Okay, so Why is brushing your teeth important?
So you don't have to get silver teeth.
Yeah, cavities, right? Yeah, and cavities are painful, but guess what? They're also really stinky.
I didn't know that cavities were stinky.
Yeah, so basically a cavity is an infection in your tooth, and infections have a very bad odor.
I have a question.
Yes.
If you have that stinky stink like from one of your teeth, is that how you know that you have a cavity?
Well, so no, and that's a really great question. Absolutely. You know, a lot of people, physicians, nurses, they'll tell you that they can smell infection. They know because it has a very particular odor, and that's kind of nature's way of letting us know something's not right. Now, we have a dog with a skin condition, Beetle.
She has mange or something?
Yeah, she's 17 years old, and she has a genetic form of mange that she has to get treated for. It's called demodectic mange. It's not the one that's contagious. It's the one...
Every week she has to get a shot for it, and...
Yes.
But she's getting better every day.
Well, it's a naturally occurring mite that once you get older and your immune system isn't as good as it used to be, they have a tendency to overgrow in the skin. Well, anyway, the point is that we knew something was wrong with her just by her odor. And I would take her into the vet, and Dr. Kiner said, "Oh, I can tell she's got an infection just by the way that she smells," right?
Because people know that are like doctors, vets and stuff, they have to know when you're going to be going. Like if a dog has mange or something, they can just tell by the odor right away.
Yeah.
They have mange, they have this, they have that.
And because what it is the mange is a type, well, we're talking about the smell of infection. The mange was making her skin susceptible to infection, which Dr. Kiner could smell, right?
She called the stink aroma for many years.
Yes, that's what I called it. Beetle, I call it a aroma. And the reason I call it a aroma is if you've ever smelt a corn chip after it kind of gets old, or like a taco shell, it has a really kind of a particular odor, and that's what she gets to smelling like. Yes. A taco, an old taco.
Like a really disgusting old taco that was left out in the open, and it's just rotting.
Yeah, maybe like the Taco Bell dumpster, huh?
And days by days it got worse and worse and worse, and then finally when we moved here, we finally figured out what she had.
Poor Beetle. But anyway, so you can definitely smell infection. And so that's another reason for stinky breath or halitosis. Okay, here's another one. Heartburn. Okay, now heartburn is basically when your stomach, the acid in your stomach, it comes back up your esophagus. The technical term for heartburn is gastroesophageal reflux disease, or GERD, okay? And you know, I already kind of briefly talked about how, you know, the contents of your stomach can actually affect your breath. Well, the stomach acid can also be related to halitosis. Okay, now, so we've talked about all of these things, but you know, we each have our own very unique bacteria, right?
Yes.
Well, some of us might just have bacteria that's stinkier than others.
Your bacteria is different than mine. Like, you know how your fingers have different marks on them? Like your fingertips?
Yeah, your fingerprints.
All of them are different from each other.
Exactly. And
like,
so is our bacteria.
From yours.
Yeah, and
so the bacteria is the same way.
Exactly. And so, you know, some of us might just have stinkier bacteria than others, and that gives us halitosis.
I think Dad has the stinkiest bacteria of all of us.
Poor Dad. And tomorrow's Father's Day.
And you're gonna be stinking like garlic.
But we gotta let him stink like garlic on Father's Day, right?
Yes. You should give him the rest of the jar of the garlic olives.
I don't know.
It's Father's Day.
Okay. There's also another reason that you could have bad breath, and that's from high blood sugar. Okay. High blood sugar, that's related to diabetes, right? And diabetes is a medical condition. And what's happening is your body is not metabolizing sugar in the normal way because you've got a dysfunction with your liver. And but anyway, the way that it affects your breath is that it can actually make your breath kind of smell fruity or sweet.
Fruity or sweet?
Yeah. It has a sugary scent. And basically what that is it's the fact that all of the sugar is kind of floating around in your body unmetabolized, not processed in the way that, a normal body would process that. So again, another reason for halitosis.
Do you have to say it like that?
Okay, there's another, and this one's a little bit more obscure because I don't think that too many people have this condition or this syndrome. The one famous person that I've heard has it is Serena Williams, and she's the tennis star. Do you know who Serena Williams is?
No.
She's that super buff chick. She's always winning tennis championships.
No.
Okay, anyway.
I don't know any tennis people.
It's either Serena or Venus Williams. I can't remember.
All I know are kids. I don't know grown-ups that well.
It's a syndrome that's called Sjogren's syndrome. Now, Sjogren's. This is another one that's very difficult to pronounce.
Sjogren's syndrome.
Yes. Now, Sjogren's syndrome is not pronounced or is not spelled with an S and an H. It's actually Sjogren. Sjogren. Okay. Now, it's a type of autoimmune disorder, and it's linked to rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. And what ends up happening, why people with this type of syndrome get stinky breath, is because it's linked with dry mouth, cotton mouth. So again, here's the saliva thing that comes into play. So it seems like saliva is very important to having fresh breath, isn't it?
But what's the cause of that?
It's autoimmune. So any kind of autoimmune disorder is generally caused by an overreaction of your immune system. And I think that's a topic that we should certainly get into in more in depth. But today we need to stick to the science of bad breath and halitosis. So that's basically all I've got, Cece. Those are the medical, the dietary, those are the reasons behind bad breath. Now, here's the great thing about science. So science reveals the underlying causes of issues. And by doing that, we can work on exactly why, how, what to do to make sure that we fix it.
I have one question before I get off.
What?
Who invented toothpaste?
Oh, that's a good one. We need to, okay, if anybody's listening, drop us a line. Let us know who invented toothpaste, because this could be really fascinating, and I think this would be a good exploration.
If you can, please look up who invented toothpaste, because that would be really cool.
And so, for me, the takeaways are, science has revealed to us that the underlying causes of bad breath are reduced saliva, right? Mm-hmm. Like saliva seems to be the key here to making sure that our breath is fresh. We've got to keep our mouths moist. We've got to keep the food out of it. So we've got to floss, brush. And when we can't do all of those things, maybe we should chew some gum or get some mints. And not let Dad have an entire jar of garlic olives.
Tomorrow we're going to let him have the rest of the jars. The rest of the jar. Tomorrow I think we're going to let him have the rest.
For Father's Day?
Yes. I think he already ate all of it.
Okay, guys. Well, we've already talked almost an hour about bad breath and halitosis. So I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. Thank you so much, Cece. High five. She's my science buddy, and her sister is too. One of these days we're going to get Penny onto the podcast. Thank you for listening.
I think she's going to have
Yeah, this is probably our 5th time to try to record this podcast because we had Penny on earlier and she just kept beeping into the microphone.
Beep, 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 beep. That's all she did.
Happy belated Father's Day. Thank you for listening. Hope you guys have a great week.